Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. God, help us take a deep breath, relax for an hour, talk some volleyball. Please help us as we prepare to guide these kids to become better players in volleyball and better people. In your name we pray. Amen. So I know everybody's obviously educated in volleyball, so I'm going to blaze through this. Today is just about laying the foundation, about like key terms, things that we're teaching. Everything's always up for discussion, but when we're in season, we have to unify and work together. That's the message this year. Our training is our focus, faith and training. So, points of discussion, we're going to go over the technical training, kind of what we're doing. The staff leads right now, so Chanel's working with the passing side. So what we're doing is kind of like a tear down system. So Chanel's going to be overseeing passing, but that's going to also drive into her going into the bros on the outsides because both those positions pass. We've got Aaron, which will be working on hitting. Aaron will go into the middles and the outsides and the right sides because they all hit. Bill will be working on setting, and then Alicia's going to be working on some serving stuff. So then below them are going to have each position, like Lauren, maybe doing like outsides and stuff like that, so that when she's talking passing, she'll work with Chanel. She's talking hitting, she'll work with Aaron. So it kind of spider webs down. That way we have leads by position and skills, so we're kind of unifying what we're doing. The systems, so I'll kind of discuss a couple of systems. Now, granted, this is age appropriate, right? So with Kurt, way different system than me, right? So I mean, it's going to be more simplified, like a perimeter. But I'm going to give you the outlines of what we run, and then when you're in season, we can discuss what's going to work best for your team. The one thing I want to drive, though, is when I ran TCA when it opened up in Houston, was out of California. It was kind of the basis of Gold Medal's career when it started. And their philosophy was, we're going to run our system every single time. And I don't believe in that. Your kids are different. Your kids are going to fit a system. We need to figure out what system that is against who you're playing and adjust those systems. Game coaching, we'll talk about some different things that I do. We can discuss things that work for you. And the mental game is talking about kind of stuff that mentally, and volleyball IQ, probably a better word for this. I'll do mental training for everybody at one point in time. We talk about that as well. That is one of the biggest things in the game we need to look at, because errors are 9 times out of 10 the reason we're losing matches. So, just really quickly, so why do y'all coach? Somebody give me an answer. Why do you do it? Kurt, why do you coach?
I like the fact that I have an impact on the ladies' lives, great players, citizens.
So you do it for the kids. Anybody else?
Love of the game and
Love the
seeing
game.
the growth of the girls mentally, physically, on and off the court.
Anybody else? No, can't say quiet all the time. I'm picking you up. Better answer the easy ones, hard ones. So, I coach for a couple of reasons. One, I kind of love giving back to the game. I started as a player, but I had a really quick career jumping into coaching college. And the game has been really good to me all my life. I've been in all aspects of the game, and I'm also older. And so my faith in giving faith to kids and teaching them to be better people is a big momentum for me right now. And working with coaches to be better coaches. That's why I do it now. When I started, it was a job. I loved kids, I loved coaching, but it's changed over the last year. But the reason I say that is 9 times out of 10 when you ask me why they coach, it's not financial. Right? So in order to be a better coach, I think there's a lot of things that we need to work together on to make sure we're delivering the right things that we say we want to do. So passing and defense techniques. I know you can't read that. I can barely read that. So I'll share this with us if you need it. If I share this with you, don't share it because it's still a work in process. So for passing, what I've leaned on the last few years is I like passing off my left side on the left side of the center. Okay, so basically, where she's my setter. If I'm on this side, the farther away, the deeper the angle, is basically what I teach. I like out of body more nowadays. When I started, I was a big midline person. If you look at the USA stuff, it was all midline. But I find anything midline tends to choke itself. So getting out and the ball's faster. So anything to your left of your center is right. It's correct. Anything to the right side of the center is going to be off the right hand side of the body. So the angles are determined to where the target is. So as we teach passing, we want to really work on angles. You can do drills with like the tennis ball in the air to drive the correct angles of where they're passing, but we really want to work on framing that angle. early platform is something I want to make sure we work on as well. With our early platform, if you watch really good passers, as you watch good passers, they frame early. The faster the ball, the quicker they frame. What I've found, and again, this is just me, the more motion you have during a pass, the more tendency it is going to be an error. So I work a lot with my passers on getting it early and holding it as it contacts your arm. The more still you are, the more accurate the pass. So learning where the ball is going and trailing and framing that ball early, that's what we're looking for. And that's going to have a lot to do with reading, but we want to get away from balls over here. Let me get my hands to it because that's going to lend itself to a lot of shaking. Eye training, we want to work on them. Speed to me is anticipation. Kids can be quick, but reading makes slow kids look really calm. So with our eye training, we want to work on two things. We want to work on looking at the server and making sure, like if her elbow's dropping, we realize the ball's probably going to be high and short. If the elbow's high, she's serving deep. Any key indicators that we can give them before the ball gets to them is a key of them obviously doing these things early. Also, we want to make sure if they can see the ball before the ball gets to the net, that's what we're looking for. Okay, we don't want them reacting, we want them to be proactive. Okay? The other thing about eye training that I talk about is, especially with floaters, is with a floater, I like to see our passers track the ball into their platform and then watch the ball off their platform before they look at target. A lot of times we're looking at our target, then our peripherals don't have as good a view. If it floats and it moves, and we shake. So we kind of trail in, but what you don't want your kids doing, and I see it a lot when they try to do this, is they pass like this before the ball's to them. That's the opposite of what you want to do. But our ability to track the ball into our platform and watch it off is key. Location and height. I don't care how fast the pass is. I care how fast the ball's off the setter's hands. So the premise of trying to speed the pass up, especially in our younger age groups, it should never come into conversation. Because even if they pass the setter up, pass faster, the setter's not there to get there anyways. Because half the time they're transitioning. So unless the kid's standing at the net, it's an ineffective thing. So I don't care how high they pass the ball, because the higher they are, the kids can get set, locate, and shoot the ball. But we want to make sure that it's in the right zone, not tipping. Anything to add on that, Eric? Chanel?
Nope.
All right, feet. I'm not a stickler on feet because I really believe the platform is really the basis of passes. But what I don't want is the old school right foot forward and non-balance. So as they're passing, I like to see them a little bit more balanced and steady, but I'm really more concerned with the platform. I just don't want them super staggered. And when you watch them at the beginning of servicing, when they're standing, shoulder width height legs, because I want them to be able to move. What you don't want your passers is negative steps. The ball serves my left, I step here and step there, right? Negative steps are bad because it's going to make them slow the ball. Anything here, you want to be ready so you can move forward, backward, side, right, whatever. They've got to be balanced and athletic, and they've got to be relaxed with their hands. We can talk about hand position. We've had a couple of discussions about it. All I don't want is this up here. Down here, I'm kind of okay with. I like relaxed arms, but I'm fine with them here, right? But I don't want them like this palms up in the air thing like this, where they're trying to like come at me for kind of move or whatever it is. The shuffle and the footwork, we'll work on this. I mean, star footwork's cool, it's good, it makes them move. But for me, if the ball is to my left, what we want to get them away from, and why I mentioned the shuffle is, if the ball's to my left, I'd rather them shuffle over and keep that drive. If the ball's to my right, I shuffle over to keep it on my left. Those movements are to present the correct angle. So being able to shuffle left and right is because I want them on the right side of their body as much as possible. And then our backward movement is always our weakness. So over here, if we're balanced, we can take that step back up and balance and get back. Or we aggressively use our hands, which is something that we don't train on. And then serve receive seams. As long as the kids know the responsibilities, I'm not stuck on a philosophy on seaming. Because I teach where the server is where I talk my seams front and back. And it's basically a misconception with kids is that ball's short, it's mine. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the ball is directly in between you when you have the cohesive movement. If the ball is short in front of me, I'm passing the ball in front of me. I don't want you looking at the kid over here. It's like, oh, it's short. No. If the ball is range, you take it. It's just the ball in between the two of us that we talk about. So if the server's over here, I do the hug the server thing. So if the kid's on this side, you've got my shirt, I've got your knee, or what have you, off of your hands, and where the ankles are. Does that make sense to everybody? And we can get core into this later. Am I missing anything in the passing stuff? No? That I not hit the areas?
No.
I think I hit them all. Aaron, did I miss anything in there? Again, we may have a deal just on passing and defense. What I need, because we're limited on time, is you to understand the philosophies of what we're teaching and the key terms. So if I go to your practice, you're like, hey, make sure you're passing off your left side of center, that's great, right? If not, I just need to know what you're saying and why, because it's got to be delivered all the way up and down. I don't want Chanel saying one thing and you saying another. We've got to be cohesive with what we're delivering. Because the goal of this is to start having our own kids in our own system working their ways up. So we have Kurt's team go up to 12s move to 13s. By the time they're getting to Alicia or Lauren or Bill, the things that y'all have installed and moving forward on, not having to reteach it every single year at the beginning of the year, right? Our goal is to train our kids. Yeah.
Just a quick add, like as we go into positional training and training our kids, we are not saying kids can't pass to their right, just to be very clear. But we are training them hard at passing to their left. So if they get in the game and the person serves an aggressive ball and they take it over their right shoulder, I mean, they get a 3 game. But when it comes to training and what we are emphasizing and holding them accountable to when it comes to practice and positionals, this is what we're looking for.
Yeah, it's important to let them know that they can be athletic. There's going to be a ball hit or a ball served too fast for them to get in their left. All right? Just understanding that if that ball comes on my right side, this is a more difficult angle to manipulate, dropping our leg, opening ourselves up. It's harder. They need to be prepared to do it, but we're training anytime you can take it in your left, it's going to be a higher percentage pass success. All right, so on the defensive side, so for me personally, I don't care how high the ball is on defense on a dig. I want it high, middle. I'm not going to run, there's very few times I'm going to run my middle on a dig, unless it's an elementary type of team that's playing. It's just like a down ball, fine. But a hit or an aggressive swing, we want to take middle. We want time for us to have 1, 2, maybe 3 options where we can throw it out to the pin and reset to get the ball back to run our offense. So when we're running any type of digging drill, anything like that you're running, get your target off the net. Like if we're running butterfly and you're running the kids standing at the net, these kids are going to keep doing it and it's going to replicate. And if we're playing a defensive drill and your target's in the same spot, they're going to dig at the net. It's going to cause you problems. If you're doing a defensive drill, have them sit towards the 10-foot line in the middle and work them in that area. We want to replicate what we're going to see in practice. But middle is the major term we're looking for. Balance before contact. So balance before contact, what I'm saying is a lot of people are big stickers on systems, which I'll talk about perimeter and so forth. But the number one priority in our defense is not the system, it's how you are before they contact and making your read at the ball. So as somebody's contacting, if I'm still moving, it takes everything away from being able to be efficient at digging. When they're contacting, I should be stopped in a line of where they're attacking and now I'm ready to make a move to wherever they hit it, versus if I'm moving and they hit it back this way. So the key is to see and stop when they're attacking. Now, is that a perfect world? No. But as much as possible, we want to be stopped to react. So they want to make sure they're stopped before the kid contact the ball and then we can see them. Their reading is exactly what I'm talking about. And I'll talk about lanes and layers and stuff, but the main objective for these kids from the younger ages all the way up is teach them to see the person and get their eyes off the ball. We want them to see the hitter, the attacker, the tipper, the setter. All these things are on eye sequencing is the priority for us, learning how to read. It makes us much better, much faster. The eye sequencing we'll talk about a little bit. That's like a ball center, ball hitter thing on where their eyes go defensively. But when we're indicating a hitter, and these things vary, people teach shoulders, which is fine. When we get to those higher levels, they can turn body and stuff. We can still read that. We can also watch their nose. We just want them reading the kid. And then one thing I want to emphasize to all your kids, every warm-up is that's not a time to kick balls in the warm-up or like jerk around. You can learn very quickly what a team's going to do by watching them warm up. If their outside hitter hits 30 balls to the cross, then if I'm a middle back, I'm going to cheat my base a couple times if that kid goes up, right? So understanding what their tendencies are and reading these things are key. On, off, and over. So this I'll bring to the whole club when we ever have a chance, or I'll come to your practice and run it. So this is a gold medal square type thing. On, off, over is basically an indicator for the first ball contact on the other side of the net. Okay? If the ball is on, that means it's a good pass. Then we immediately identify all three hitters. Defense does not move on that first contact. We're stationary and balanced and watching what the pass is doing. If it's on, we understand the middle is an option and both pins are an option. And at higher levels, the pipe could be coming out of the back end too, right? But understanding that, okay, this is a good pass, I have to hold and make sure my priorities are. At 18s, the outside's a stud, so as soon as we see an on pass, we're making sure we know where that kid is. But for y'all, like for 11s, it's understanding it's an on pass, so the middle blocker, I'm going to stay with my middle right now until I see where the ball goes. So I've got to stay loaded. My hands are up. If the ball is off, I drop my hands because they're not going to set their middle. And now I've got to either know A, who their primary is, or B, my hands are loaded transition to one of the two pins. Because it's off, they're going to set the pins. Right? So on just tells us basically, eventually, letting them understand if the ball's on, I know my blocking responsibilities, and I'm watching the ball, then I go to the setter. Right? What's the setter doing? And then after the setter releases the ball, we're finding the hitters. What's the route? Where's the hitter? And then stop our contact. If it's off, that's for you as a coach to kind of ideally know, especially at the level we're playing at. There's probably one really good kid that if it's off, they're probably going to set them more. So give that kid 4 hands and leave the kid that doesn't score as much on 2 hands and let her try and score. The goal is to take away the best player and make them try to win with somebody else. All right, and then if it's over, free ball transition, which we can talk about. Obviously, everybody knows what that is. All right, anticipating in volleyball IQ, we already kind of talked about that. Lines and layers. So as I get into defense, with lines and layers, probably should have brought something. So, say it's the outside hitter. So for me, if we're playing a regular perimeter defense, block goes out, offside blocker, left back, middle back, and then right back. Talking about responsibilities and reading in defense. This is my 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and then 20 to 30. So I talk a lot about responsibilities laterally and understanding that this player is responsible for everything in this area. The tip or roll that's behind the 10-foot line, whatever. This person's in for the tip right here. She can also go over here, but she's more concerned about the 10 to 20, and the middle back's ranging from the 20 to 30. That's what I call a layer. And the reason being is that the main reason is to keep this kid from running into this kid, because the left back always goes too deep, and that stresses, depending on your defense, and that gets in the way of the middle back making the read, and you have that convolution. Skyline, a couple other clubs will run the middle back up for the inside 10 to 20, and the middle and the left back down. I just do a traditional perimeter right now. If we find a way it's working, I'm fine with changing. But the main thing is them understanding their lines or their layers of where their defensive position sits. And then the line is where the hitter's attacking and trying to get to that line. So no matter where she turns, the layer in the line. Does that make sense to everybody, kind of? We'll get more in depth of that later, but the main thing to understand is I'm a defender, ball goes to outside attack, I know I'm responsible. If she tips and it's past the 10-foot line, I'm automatically engaged. Now I want everybody to move, but I know that's my responsibility. And if it's a push tip to the back corner of the line, my middle back is releasing. She's not worried about that tip because she knows that kid's got the front responsibility. And then understanding where the line is and where that attacker's facing and everything comes into. So, the platform up. So the big thing for me is when we're digging, what I see a lot of times is the reason we teach elbows down on the ground and stuff like that is because we're trying to get the platform facing up. So as we're digging, we want to get the kids away from their hands being here. As they dig, we're just going to push the ball at the net. We want to get under and keep our hands up. Keep their platforms up and have them dig high. Off the net's fine in our system. Get it up. We just want to make a play. Then we work our offense to get the ball back. But the main thing is to keep their platforms up and their hands up. Because a lot of times when they dig, especially if they're here, they're on their way here and the ball's already contact with the platform's facing straight at the net. And that's just a given that they're going to get let up. And the hands digging, you need to put 5 minutes of practice on hands. Nobody does it in girls' game. This makes your defensive game way more efficient if they can do it, because it shrinks the defense and you have a deeper ball being able to play, because a lot of girls struggle on the higher hit ball, where if we're hitting deep at somebody, Chester's it, they can't play it. So being able to bring our hands up and comfortably do it, and especially if you're struggling to serve receive with your platforms. If you're struggling with your platform, the first thing I would do is I'd bring my hands in and step in and choke up a little bit and see if I can take out my hands, because I'm struggling with my platform. So hands practicing is big. Anything? Out of system. So we already kind of talked about this. So high is good, off is good. Set location. When you're talking about set locations, for me, I like it at least 2 foot off and at least 2 foot in. You can vary that. Younger kids, you can do 4 and 4. Right, because it's much easier on an inside set to deal with than outside the antenna. Because if we're doing defense, as long as outside the antenna, the entire court shrinks and you can shrink your defense. But for out of system, nice and high to the outsides. And we'll talk about the offensive mindset of why too. But main thing is off the net high, and we have 3 options 9 times out of 10, depending on what you're doing with your outside and where they're playing. Any questions on out of system? Pretty simple.
I would just say practice it every practice.
If you look at the stats, we're out of system 70% of the game. So if you only practice 3 minutes of out of system your practice, then you're setting yourself up to struggle. And when I get to my offensive mindset, you'll understand more about why I do what I do as well. Any questions on passing? Any comments? Defense? Any of that? I promise I'm gonna move quick, so don't be afraid to ask a question. I won't string it out. Everybody good? So hitting techniques, I'll breeze through this a little bit faster. Okay, so with the hitting techniques, the number 1 emphasis in the club, to me, is hand contact. Because everything relies on your ability to manipulate the ball with your wrist and your hand. If you can't control the ball, the game becomes much more difficult. You can have a cannon arm, but if you can't control the ball, you can't tool, you don't have shots. Hand contact's everything. So I would, again, with practicing technical stuff, spend a couple minutes, partner snap, whatever, but work with their hands. Their snap is part of their swing. It is not an afterthought. They don't hit the ball and then snap. What they do is we're trying to break. That snap is part of that whip, which comes around, that thumb, that pinky. That stuff's got to be delivered. And the way to say it is I say it 2 ways, knuckles to target. So as I'm swinging here, if I'm going cross, my knuckles are going to drop to the 5. I'm showing that zone my knuckles, that will put the ball to that zone. And their ability to do that big when we talk about my offensive systems. Okay? The other way to think of it is show your nails to your partner or whatever, trying to emphasize that, right? For guys, we don't do that, but a lot of girls do. Show my nails, pickle jar, touch your elbow, whatever you want, but you want them dropping that hand. But the main thing is, knuckles the ball. Eye on the ball, block is in your peripheral. Early season, explain what a peripheral is, because they need to understand it, even a little bit. What we want them doing is, a lot of hitters have a habit of looking to where they're hitting as they're hitting. The problem is that the ball is your target. Your peripherals guide everything else, in my opinion. So as I'm attacking, I see the ball from my peripheral, I can still change, but my wrist and hand contact is what delivers that ball to that zone. Right? The movement of the left and the right back, I can see it, I can see her move, and then I can manipulate the ball. But if you take your eye off the ball, that's when trouble happens. So you want them to understand, as they're attacking, feet to ball, eye on ball, deliver shot. But the main thing is making sure, and it sounds really simple, but if you watch them hit, and you see their heads move, they don't realize they're doing it. They've got to see the ball. My arm breakdown's pretty simple. I think this is pretty traditional, so I'll breeze through it, but we want frame with our left, and then replacing elbow and arm through, and then thumb to pocket is what I teach. Is that what you teach too? Same thing for y'all. So as we're coming through, we're framing. Now there's a big discussion of elbow replacement, like where the elbow is. Me personal, I don't mind dropping the elbow a little bit as it transitions because you're throwing your elbow, and then you're coming through with your arm, and then your snap. And if you're teaching with the kids, it's frame, hip, elbow, swing. And the progression, you can do it kind of slow. The hip is important for them to understand that they're driving their body through that swing, especially when they're hitting forcefully against the block, right? If they want to get that generation of speed. This is a really big muscle for me, but you want to throw that hip through. So arm swing, anything else? Did I miss anything? Oh, and then again, an easy way to say it to kids is it's like you're saying yes. A lot of people now are teaching away. I don't like that. I've seen too many people hurt their shoulders as they throw their way through. I like it kind of more in towards the body. As long as they're moving the left hand for me, I'm kind of okay with whatever comfortable, because it's just pulling that core. You want their head through the ball, and that's it. Control is something that is my pet peeve. You can ask Jade, she did it for like 3 years at nauseam with us, which is target hitting. We do a lot of control hitting. Kids don't know what that is, and it's extremely effective on the off ball. Your kid can look like a stud on a great set, but how many great sets do you have in a match? So their ability to control their arm is pivotal. So for me, very simplistically, I will have a passer, a setter, and my outsides have a cone to the one, and we warm up at a 60%, 50% swing. That's hard for the littles, but at least letting them know, hey, go ahead and swing, just try to get to this area. But understanding zone hitting and control is important, right? There's a time, if it's a good ball and the ball doesn't land, if y'all ever saw Carly play when she was younger, there's still holes in the wall at Second Baptist from that kid, right? Because she would just, I mean, it was scary, right? But as she gained control, I mean, now she ended up winning 2 national championships. She's playing for, I think, East now. I mean, kid developed, and it was because of her control. Control is everything. Power's great, control is even better. Shots, tips, and rolls. This is also something that's not taught enough, and especially at the younger age groups. Okay? I'm not saying tip and roll every ball, but I am saying understand that if it's not a good ball, learn how to tip and roll, play small ball until you get the ball that you want. They have to be patient, because 9 times out of 10, kids suck at digging a tip or a roll. And I would honestly take the roll way away, because kids try to roll shot, it's like a free ball. But tipping is an art. And if you can tip well, it's going to really cause a lot of problems and keep that moving. And again, the focus is on the tip. And what they need to understand is we're not trying to score every time we tip. We're trying to get the ball back to run a good set to swing at. And if you tip, they become out of system. Keep taking the setup. I mean, it's boring volleyball, but boring wins games. Core and hips we talked about, and then staying behind the ball. A lot of hitters you can see as they come up, they jump at the ball, and so their body's back this way, and they're all arm. We want to teach them to be behind the ball, because the other problem is you lose sight of the ball when it's back here too. So taking off behind the ball and to the ball are the 2 things that focus for the hitters. Anything to that, Aaron? Anything to that, Z? I'm cruising, so we're doing a good time.
Slow to fast.
That's what's next. So footwork, there's 2 different, he's right. So when I was a kid and I was teaching it to be like squash the ball over the river, 2-3 is the way we taught it. So they learned the gap, right? With the little kids. For kids now, small, big, biggest, right? First step on a 3-step, small, big, and then the biggest is, or actually it should be, it's kind of weird. If you're doing a 4-step, it'd be small, big, biggest. Me, it's slow to fast. But it also depends on varying a tempo of set. Because if it's a fast set, it's going to be a fast approach. For me, we have the step breakdown, right, is the last 3, is what we talk about more than anything. The other ones, you could do a 7-approach step. It's always going to be the last 3. So the cadence on left is, the first step is what's called the directional step. This is imperative for your kids to understand, because if you watch hitters, outsides go to the outside zone, and you got a 12 or 13-year-old that can't set past the 3 zone, and they're still going way out here, and they can't do anything. The directional step is the correction. On a 4-step, I step momentum, ball's inside, I step to the ball with my directional step, which is the gap, get over the river, plant foot, back of heel roll, break step pop. That's the breakdown of the feet, what we teach. We get the little ones all come in and work with that. You making fun of me how I teach it? Kids remember that stupid thing, right? Yeah, right side teach for us. Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes. Slow to fast. The footwork first set speed. If you get to a level to do this, I mean, you probably 15s and above may start looking at this. I would, if your kid can't hit a 1, a 5, and a 9 and score, then don't add other sets until they can score on it, right? Because you're just speeding up the problem. I mean, the A, yes, but like 3s, goes, whatever, rips, gaps, all that kind of stuff, we don't even running unless they can officially hit the other set before. So, on that speed, on a regular set, the setter setting, I'm stepping on my first step with my fourth step, right? Then the ball's inside, I step and I go. On a go, it'd be more like a step directional, but because it's sped up, it's gonna be more of that location, so you're gonna have to drive and go. So you wanna teach the step to the setter. And we can talk about that later as we get more advanced. And then, I don't care about how many steps. I would suggest with your middles a 3-step because the transition points, right? The transition for the 3-step is more efficient. But if you're an 11-year-old and you need to back your kid up to get her off the net, you do 4-step. 11s, I don't care. If she hit the balls, we're looking at, right? The 5-step on the outside, it's totally up to you. If you got a kid that's that big, just remember how fast she's got to get through her approach, and also realize that that's more of an out-of-system ball than a pace ball. Okay. The positional keys. With your outside hitters, use your judgment. I'll talk about setting skills in a second, but if you're running a 1, it doesn't need to hit the ceiling of the convention center. But it also doesn't need to be so fast that they can't turn line or manipulate the ball or at least be late in the transition point. For me, a 1's a little bit higher than the antenna probably. You know, the older they get, when they start kind of hutting it a little bit, I might say antenna height. But the height of your 1, don't be afraid to keep it high. They may have more hands, but they're going to have more control and pace on their approach to swing. And if you teach tooling, it's going to be okay anyways. And if the middle's holding them, they're going to be late regardless. The middles, I would prefer in 16s and up, we're hitting a 0 tempo out of the middle, or at least running the 0 tempo for the efficiency of holding a block. We want them in the air as the setter's setting it. But at 14s and under, 15s and under, if you're running an A and it's more like a low 2, that's fine. Because you still want to be able to have something run up and down. The right side, as far as pace, I mean, they're closer to the setter, so it does annoy me a little bit if it's too high with the right side, just because the middle literally can be like, and set on them, so if you can pace it a little bit, it'll give a little problem. And then the pipe, for the pipe, I would say antenna height, not a bit, for most age groups. I miss anything on hitting? Hitting. Setting techniques, we'll lean on Bill on this, but basically for me, major key terms, palm the target when they're setting. Just make sure they're finished palm the target. There used to be this Superman philosophy where you finish this way. Now there's no doubles, maybe that comes into play, I don't know. But for right now, nice easy trampoline hands, just making sure they're finishing towards their setting. And then consistent pace. When you're working with your setters, be aware that most of y'all like 6'2s, which that's up to y'all, right? I can talk about the advantages and disadvantages of both. But this setting comparisons have to be close. Because what happens is you're outside setting 2 rotations on one and one on the other, and the other one comes in, they're like slow because the other one's skyballing the ball. So in practice, try to ideally learn with them, hey, yours is too high, yours is too low, but try to get some consistency. Your hitting percentage is skyrocketing. Footwork, we'll go into this with the setting clinic, but main thing is, your left foot forward, as you said, right?
Right.
Right foot forward. I wrote that wrong. I'm dyslexic, you'll catch me every once in a while. And making sure, if you watch college ball, especially the men's game, I love how setters are like, they're stopped, their hands are sitting up there, and they're moving. Like, because they're more anticipative. Like, they're not like at the net going, okay, 1, 2, 3, and then they do their set work, right? For me, gold medal squared is like that 1, 2, 3, footwork, and the old school footwork is the left right type stuff with the footwork. I don't really care as long as the kid's in control of just setting the ball. Personally. But we can talk about footwork, what's best for your kid. Positional keys, the set consistency I already talked about. Here's something you have to drive home. Please, when I talk about plays, understand why we're running the play. Your goal is to find the midget that's blocking and run everything away from the midget so that one kid's attacking the midget. That's not politically correct. I apologize. But the shortest person on the court or the weakest blocker is where you run everything away from. Everybody's fascinated with the combo, and it's great to establish, but the goal is to take advantage of the worst kids. Just like basketball, pull everybody else away and let me take one-on-one to the hole. With volleyball, if there's a bad blocker on the right side, then run your middle on an A or a slide, run your right side on a C or a 9, and throw the ball to the pin and let that kid challenge the block. So as you're developing offenses, understand what you're running and why. If they have a horrible middle, then you can run the tandem, right? There's too many times, the tandem's like an A5, right? Middle's on a quick, outside comes around for the right side, comes for a 5 out of the middle, bang, kid's on the way down, great play, looks cool, ha, great. But if the kid's 9 foot tall and signed with Nebraska, don't run the freaking 5 because it doesn't make any sense. I know the play looks cool, but it's not efficient. Run away from the middle. Now run something this way and make the big kid go away and run it away. But kids really have to understand this. They like running the plays, they look cool. Why are we running? The setter diagram I'll show you in a second. 6'2", 4'2", 5'1". I'm assuming everybody knows what they are. If they don't, I'm happy to sit down with you. It's not super complicated. 6'2", setter's always back row. 4'2", setter's always front row. 5'1", one setter all the way around. And there's other setting things that we can talk about. It's way too much for tonight. But understand, the 6'2" lends itself to a better offense and a worse servicing. Okay, if you're at a younger age group, people really undervalue the 4'2". It's easier to run, the setter's always in a better position to set, and you really don't need 3 hitters. Because a setter can dump, or you can have a kid hit from the pipe or whatever, but the reality is you're not throwing very good backsides at the young ranges anyways, right? So, now, if you have a setter that can't touch the bottom of the net when she's running under it, maybe reconsider, right? But understanding that the 5'2", the 5'1", and the 4'2" are undervalued. The 5'1" is the best one to run. It's just difficult. It's hard to find a center that's big, right? And you have to worry about playtime issues with parents. But the reality is, you have a job. So when you're a qualifier, you know when to 5'1", you know when to 5'1". All right. So setting keys. Anything I'm missing on that, Eric? See?
No, emphasizing that our setters, and it's the same for defense, they're athletes first. So we are teaching footwork, and again, like when in training, try to emphasize that footwork. We're just trying to get them not to take so many steps, but big steps and fast steps to the ball. They are athletes first, and we want to remind them of that. But yeah, no, everything's good.
Yeah, and understanding again, where is the ball going and getting there is the key. Because again, the ball's passed, following the ball and chasing it, that's when it was, I'm glad you got your feet right, but the ball hit the ground before you got there. Like, you got to get to it. Serving, this will be her turf, but just general floater upon the target. A lot of different emphasis for me. So when I'm serving, if they're stepping, remember they may need to lead their toss. Their serve speed is off of their arm speed. It's not arm strength. You're not muscling the ball. The faster your arm is, it's physics. Your hand through that ball fast equals farther faster. So the more distance generated between your hand and the ball generates more pace in the ball. And so if your kids in high school, if they're serving out, scoot them back. In club, we can't do that. So you have to understand, okay, how do we elongate the court? Then you go corner to corner. Serve from the 1 to the 5 or the 5 to 1, right? Vary the distance that they're serving and don't slow their arms down unless you have to. I'd rather a kid serve a ball out of bounds versus a ball in the net every day. And if it's a more aggressive serve, it gets them out of system, it's better anyways. But in order to make that ball float, there's a lot of different philosophies on this. In old school volleyball, the heaviest part of the ball is the air intake. That's the heaviest thing on the ball. So that part of the ball, as it drops, causes a little bit of a dip in the ball, which they talk about the dying quail ball. That's because we used to aim the air pump at the serve receiver. And when you serve, and then that ball had a tendency to kind of die. I don't know if it's true or not. The balls are different now anyways, but it's something to think about. Also understanding on the volleyball, it's got the 3 layers of the 3 panels. If you teach digging on the bottom, serving on the in the middle, and then hitting on top, right? So that serving targets it right back into the ball. And the more your hand is flat, as you contact, the less spin, the more the float. That's what gives it the wobbly. The theory is 2 things: air currents in the room. I don't know if that's true, but I do know it's got an inflated bladder, which I thought was really funny as a kid. But it shakes the shell. And so when you hit it, it shakes the ball a little bit, it makes it wobble, and that's what gives it the knuckleball feel. So, but the main thing to understand on that is you have to hit it hard enough to make that thing vibrate, which is a good analogy for them to do. Attack serve, I don't think anybody in this gym should be teaching their kid attack serves unless that kid literally can put a hole in the floor when she attacks. Because it's not a good serve if it's not fast. If it's not ripped, it's literally a down ball from 30 feet that we teach every day. So it looks cool, but it's not something you should teach unless this kid's literally spanking it, because kids don't know how to pass it if they're hit at pace. But if they're lollipop and they look cool, it's not a good ball. But the main thing for that is, it is a toss and an attack. 1, 2, 3, get after it. And it's launch it. If you're teaching it, I would teach them to aim high, because the top spin's gonna make it drop. 9 times out of 10, they hit them as a net. If you tell them to aim over the antenna, the ball will die and drop in. But you gotta flick the wrist and just like a hit. Side spin is a new thing. I don't know if you had kids asking about that. I definitely don't think we should be teaching this, but it's a jump serve with the pinky down. You drive through on the side of the ball as you're doing it, so it's gonna top on the side. If you watch international ball, some of the men can do it really well. So it comes at you and it fades off. But again, I don't see a kid or a gym that's gonna rip a ball like that. But at least we know what it is. Jump serve, footwork on the float. We teach a couple different variants, right? If you're doing a 4-step, it'd be 1, 2, toss, 3, 4. If it's a 3-step, which is more common, which I like personally, I think you like that too, it's step, toss, 3, 4. But the main thing for them to understand is, if they're jump serving, be careful of the ball coming back to them. Because when they toss their toss and then they go forward, the ball is back in here, and there's no reason to jump serve unless you're contacting high and fast. You might as well stay down and control it. But if they're good enough to do it, just make sure they're out in front, high hand on the target, and work their footwork. On the ages, this is the eternal debate. Me personally, I don't like it real young. I'm not adamant about it. Like, there's some kids, like, I mean, Kurt may do it. Goalball square wants them jumping from the first time they serve. I don't agree with that, but I'm not mad at it if they do. Are you one of those people too?
My 13s are jump serving.
Jump serves, what about
Well,
12?
if they're strong.
If they're strong.
Yeah.
So, what? The main thing is you want to practice it at our care. And a game, just make sure they can do it. Because you're going to win or lose games with some serving as well, especially if you're
I think this comes with like the tier of by what time they should learn something. So like if it's like 13s and under, I won't introduce jump serving until February, right?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna focus on standing for the majority of the beginning of the season. So I think if you're on the younger side, I would say around that time would maybe be okay to start introducing it.
They're strong enough and consistent enough to stand it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You did say a good key term. One thing, coaching ethics as a club, if you're up by 15, 20 points, don't have your kid laughing and jump serving or doing stupid crap. Like, I don't care if you play people, I don't care if you jump serve, if you're doing it for a reason, but we don't want that look of there's a club that we're knocking the crap out of and we're doing silly crap. So just be aware as a group, please don't beat that person. So the other stuff, the where and when and why aggressive. So here's the main thing, because again, I'm gonna book it so we can get out of our time. The why and when of aggressiveness. You need to learn the rotations and especially know where their stud is at all times. If their stud is back row and they've got their weakest 3 hitters, put the ball on his own. Kick it over. You have a chance. If the stud's front row, you need to get after it a little more because you don't want that kick up. Understanding that, because there's like coaches are like, I don't care at all costs. Like men's, I get it, right? They've got kids flying 5 hitters in the air, right? So if you give them a good pass, it's probably a kill, right? But at our level, understand the differences because you don't want to waste a game being overly aggressive when the reality is the kid can't pass to begin with. It's just being square. So understand like your zone serving and your aggressive serving. And your serving specialist. So as you go through, it's really important your kids have a role. If your kid's really struggling, but she can serve the ball really well, put her in to serve in the middle. You can leave her in a couple plays and then libero her right back out. But gives that kid a chance to have a goal. And if she digs the ball, everybody goes nuts and get excited about it. But finding these roles for different kids, understanding like the outside sub or whatever, utilize your subs to your advantages. So this is kind of like, and I would think maybe it would just be, there was times when I was a younger coach where I would just be stagnant, like I just didn't know what the hell. In fact, truth be told, last night at Concordia, I looked at Alicia and Monica, I do not know what the hell to do. It was 7 points in a row, 0 passes. I made a timeout, I made 3 subs, I kicked somebody's dog. I mean, I was all over the place and I couldn't get out of it. So the main thing is not knowing what to say. So some of these things that pop up, so go back to the terminology. Sometimes you might just have to vomit something out. If the kids are struggling and service receive, don't be like, pass the ball. That's like telling them, a little kid to jump higher. That's not coaching. You gotta be careful. So when you're saying these things, terminology is like, hey, stick your platform out early. You got this. You may say that 1,000 times, but the information coming to your mouth, the parents seeing you talking, and the kid getting the interaction may save your life in situations. Thinking ahead of the play or the timeout. Timeout! And the kids come over here and like, I forgot what I was gonna say, right? Before you call that timeout, you want to be thinking, okay, if my brain freezes, this is my go-to, right? And if my brain doesn't freeze, have that information ready where you're not spitting a bunch out. Utilize your time. If you don't know what to say, get them together for a second, turn to your assistant, and you're like, talk to me for a second, and get what you want, and go. Or let your assistant talk, right? So there's different things, but don't just freeze, because the silence is deadly. Have a personality. This is to be discussion all year long. I don't care if you get on your kids. I really don't. Just doing it at the right times and sparingly. If you yell at your kids all year long, they're gonna get immune to it and it just becomes a negative experience. For me, and Jay can attest, when I got pissed, they knew it. And Bradley can do the same thing, because I'm normally pretty like this and talking and informational, but when I get on it, it usually is pretty effective with my team because they know I mean it when I do it, when I'm driving a message. So have your own personality. If you're intense, be intense. Get a really chill assistant or make that assistant fill that role, right? But understanding that your personality is what makes you the coach that you are. Be you. They have to learn how to play for different personalities. If you're intense, then freaking game up and do it. You gotta learn how to play for that person. That's why you have somebody else to help balance you. That's why you have a nurture of coaches in the room to be behind you. If you're super pissed, grab Kurt. He'll save every situation. That dude's the most positive human being on the planet. It's true. Be positive, know your players' personalities. I can rip Jay up and down. And she'd be like, yeah! She'd be all over it. I can get on her. Right? Briley would wet the bed. Briley was pretty intense, but for you it was more like your information. You didn't need me to yell at you. You didn't like that, right? Autumn didn't care if she listened to it. But each player is different in understanding that. Like you have to understand that I may yell at Bella and she's not going to react like I want her to. She's going to either get pissed off or she's going to freak out in a situation and everything's going to go south and you blew it because you didn't know her personality type. There's other kids who are like, hey, you're good. Take a deep breath and let's roll. And they calm down and they deliver the ball you want. Because they're nervous, they're freaked out. My worst mistake in my life as a coach, 4 teams open at the United States National Tournament. We were in the semifinals, and I was so freaking amped up that I was just unintentionally loud the entire match. and these 14-year-old butts were like this the whole game, where they were shaking balls left and right and airing. Like, it was literally the best team in the country. And they were just freaking out. And it was freaking out because I was so amped up that I didn't realize I was freaking them out. If I would have just calmed down, they probably would have bounced into me. So you got to realize, like, sometimes in situations, your personality dictates how they react, whether it's right or wrong. Check with your leads. Talk to your assistants. If I come to you and ask you a question, I'm literally asking you a question. I'm not asking you for like a right or wrong. I'm asking to see why you're doing it so I understand it. You may do something I like. I'm going to pick y'all's brains too. But utilize the assets in the room. These different coaches in here, there's a lot of experience, but you're good at one thing, she's good at another, and she's good at another. The whole idea is if you're a jazz musician, if I play trumpet, and I don't know what Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, and Chuck Mangione sound like, then I can't play their music. Right? The strength of my sound is off of the individuals I've created my own sound from. So get with these coaches. Energy is everything. If you're flat, they're flat. You don't have to raw, but you got to have the energy in there. Like, you got to be engaged and involved. Don't overreact. This is hard. I, at times, will overreact on refs unintentionally. And I ref, so I'm usually pretty calm, but I get pretty animated. Just be understanding in some situation. Like, understand a kid's not shanking the ball because they want to shank the ball, right? It's really easy to get super pissed if they're not listening. Deliver the message authoritatively, but don't stick on it the entire weekend. Like, move past and teach them and go on. Just be careful of overreacting situations. Also realize the more pissed off and involved you are engaging with the ref, the less information you're getting to your team to get you out of the situation the ref called. Right? A lot of times you focus on one player, but the reality is there's 5 players on the court. So if you're watching the hitter hit the ball, you're missing everything around what that kid's doing, the coverage, the set, like everything else that's happening. You're focused on 1 versus 5 versus a wider range of people. So just be careful on that and have multiple plans. Somebody's going to go down sometimes, so in practice, make sure you have the right side playing middle, whatever. Make sure your setter sets is 5-1, all those different things. Make sure you have multiple plans. And make sure you have an extra practice plan, because there's going to be a day of work where it's going to suck and you don't plan one, and you're going to want that back. Because not having a practice plan is not a good idea. Aaron, anything in that? Z?
I would say this is something I learned with Preston, and I've just had some amazing assistants, Briley, Lauren, Aaron, and a few that aren't here. Like, you're a team, we're all a team, so just work together. And when you're like in a tournament and you have an assistant, designate them to do something to help you out. So it's like, you have my defense, I have your offense. Like, y'all work together, and that way, all aspects, because you can't cover it all by yourself, especially at the beginning. It's a lot of moving pieces. So just kind of what he said earlier, rely on each other. And if she's my assistant, I'm like, hey, can you watch my offense while I watch the defense, because we're really struggling at this. And then we call a timeout, she takes those kids, I take these kids. We're tackling 2 pieces at once. And that's something that's been huge over the last few years that I've learned from her. So, yeah.
I agree. Sometimes I, like Riley, with my assistant, sometimes kids took information better from her because they had a different relationship with her. So to me, it was that they just, I was walk wide like Charlie Brown, so she would take information and give it to players because they just were not into listening to me, and that's okay. There's a lot of times when Riley might take front, and I might take back because I need a break. Just as you guys are on the same page at all times, it makes it so easy.
No one should just kind of be standing there.
Yes.
There are 2
I'm
people.
going to get to that. I'm going to get to
Okay,
that.
perfect.
Yep, I got you. So defensive systems. What I'm not going to do today in effort to time, so I want to make sure you have time to talk about your stuff. I've got multiple slides I'm going to go through. Defense, I'm going to kind of fly through today. We'll work on that together as a group. But understanding the differences. Okay, the perimeter is gauged from protecting the perimeter of the court. In the early parts of the game, there was no overhand digging. So the defense was comprised, if you hear coaches say all the time, flow the line, that's because they were guarding the perimeter of the court, okay? And we'll talk about that at a later time. The rotation is basically when you move your right back or your left back behind the block to take away the tip, and then have your middle back go line on both sides. In a nutshell, if you know defenses.
Rotate to the hitter.
Yeah, it rotates, that's why.
Rotate
Okay, I would not suggest doing it against the right side as much, but I would say I do it a lot against the outside hitter, but I'll do it on purpose because we'll be blocking a certain thing all day long, and then I'll be like, hey, give them line, and I'll just sit my middle back on the dig, and they try to either over-rotate, knock it out of bounds, or they hit it right at my middle back. And then plus, if the team tips a lot, it takes it all away. The downside is you're putting your setter in a position of big tipping a lot, which keeps you on a system you can't run your offense. So, modified perimeter is just what I talked about. It's just doing the rotation on the outside hitter, basically. Goal middle squared is the left back and right back are 2x2. The middle back is middle. This is really good for hard-hitting teams and tipping teams. If a team is bouncing balls and warm up at 10 to 20 feet religiously, then you run into this defense. It's more geared on hot spots. And so girls have a harder time, and so do guys actually, hitting the deeper zones consistently. So the air hitting out of bounds, trying to adjust. If your kids are comfortable playing the ball with their head and below, then this defense will take away almost everything, and it puts your middle back in the split, literally to dig it every time. So if they're running fast offense, it's really good. And your blocking is more of a blocking, like an attack blocking versus scheme versus zone blocking. And then your read defense, and I think this is something for me I use a lot more. I move my kids around to where the kid is hitting. So I'll literally block cross, put my middle back in the split, put my left back across, my left front across, and I'll leave line open and let them try to hit it when they can't do it. Because I watch them warm up. Or if they hit a lot of line, then we just stick that left libero and just beat the cross all day long. The read is more based on what they're doing and letting your kids rover a little more to the tendencies. Offensive systems. We already talked about what and why. Crush, pressure, extend. Write this one down. Okay? Crush, pressure, extend. The idea is teach your kids, if it's a good set, get on it. If you hit a ball out of bounds on a great set, no problem. If you hit a ball into the net, not as good a problem, but it's okay. Because you feel like you can take a full swing on it, okay? It's okay to be error on a great set because you're trying to do something with the ball. We don't want to tip every single ball when it's a great set. The pressure becomes the ball that's off. The pressure wins medals. It qualifies. Every team that I've qualified with has wanted a pressure play because we work target hitting religiously. The ball is 2 foot off the net. We drive it down the line. Kid's not there, or the middle, or the setter sticks their hands up. Whatever. We're pressuring zones. The number one pressure area for me is zone 4. Zone 2. The slice. All right, the setter. Anytime you can take the setter out, that's an advantage because they're not going to be able to run their middle, and you know that your middles can drop their hands and start working the pins. So pressure is basically, or if you know Susie Shanks a lot is in middle back, then in pressure zones, we are putting everything at middle back. If their left front is not transitioning, everything goes to that zone. The pressure is your volleyball IQ and your ability not to err on a stupid set because that loses games. Ball's 5 foot off the net, the kid gasses the ball that's probably still somewhere in the convention center on his way up, right? That is not a ball I want you ripping. Extending is exactly what it says. Get it over the net. Do everything you can, talk, communicate. If you have to free ball high, reset our hands, reset our hands. Crush, pressure, extend. That comes from, I don't know if you know Don Flora from Southwestern, but he used to do this with Texas Tech and a lot of different teams. And because he was a football fan, we're all sitting around and you'll find when you talk to coaches and you're drinking, great conversations go on, right? And so Don was talking about football and the option of, as the quarterback steps back, there's a one option, there's a second option, there's a third option, and that progression as they go. So we started talking about options as far as hitting. That's what I came from. Too much information. Target hitting, I've already talked about. Again, in your warm-up, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of practice every day. Outside sit to the 1, outside sit to the 5. Middles to the 1, middles to the 5, right side's 1, right side 5. Hit those zones every day, get them good at it. That way in a game where you're like, hey, just put the ball to the 1, they're able to control and do it. I don't care if they tip it, 10% swing it, just get it to the 1. Shots, okay, teaching the middle to the 4. Teaching the tip to the 3 on the double block. Understanding with their middle, if there's a double block, tip to the 4. If there's a single block, tip to the 3. Understanding these, or swing. If it's a single, go. But if it's a double and you don't have to push, tip to the 4. But understanding and seeing those blockers different shots per position will win you games. We're really good, the people that have been here on games, of sitting somebody's bench and be like, hey, the two's open. And we don't even think about it. Hey, tip the two. All right, if I'm talking to my middle, you're more than welcome to my outside, the two's open, just make sure it's open. Setters. I don't know why I wanted to say this on a skip. Where to pressure we talked about. So I made a quick graph just so you kind of see the old school setting system was a 1 through 5 height and a 1 through 9 zone. Okay? So understanding when we talk about, I see all these graphs and lines and all these cool tricks, and I'm like, makes more sense. 0 tempo is literally right above the net. A 1 is right there above it. The only reason I put the 0 is I want to understand the difference between a push and an A and like a 0 tempo middle. For me at 18s, I want my middle on the way up and trying to hit the ball on the way up if they can. If they can. That's 0 tempo. I would not teach that. Y'all do that probably at 17, y'all probably do that. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, setters, everything else. 16s, I would run an A, right? She can still go get it. The problem I have at 18s is I get really tired of kids saying set the ball higher, set the ball lower. I'm like, no, go get the ball. Like, just hit on the way up. The setter doesn't have to think about location, she's throwing the ball. So, our letters are our faster sets. A, B. Does everybody understand this graph, by the way? That makes sense? It made sense in my mind, so. A, in the 5 zone. B, it's just a little bit of not an arc, but more of like a higher set because they're gonna have to jump and get it on a distance set. The push and the gap. One thing you could do with your middles, for most of the older age groups, maybe younger, what we did in college was we would say, come on, okay. If I said, come on, the center would locate the ball on the inside, I was hitting the 5. Okay meant it was a little bit of a way and I push it. So we would say A, push. Is that what we did? Y'all? A and push? So push is just a little bit over. The gap, we started running her last year pretty religiously, and our middles got really good at it, and it scores a lot of points. The gap comes from the men's game because the middle jumps and floats this way, the ball trails over. Did y'all run that, the boys at all? So when I was at the conference, that was something we're talking a lot about. I started thinking about it. For the girls, what we did is, if Kylan's my blocker, the middle would go to the outside of the block and the center would locate to the middle. So instead of the float, we just drove on the outside hand of the middle and tried to get past her. So it's not really a B, it's more of like an elongated push, but it's really effective. And the middles like running it because they can see where the block is and drive the ball. So push gap, a B or a shoot. The reason I put those two terminologies is the middle would run a B. The outside would run a shoot. So there's a differential so we understand we're saying two different things. For me, the outside is more in the 3 zone. But if you say B on the outside, the middles might get confused, so I just call it a shoot. The hut is about 2 height. For some age groups, it might be a 3. It's basically like a 3, which is a lob, which if you're looking at numbers, it'd be a 32, right? So it's a lob ball to the 3 zone. The hut's just the same set all the way to the pin. And then the 1 is in the 4 zone height in the 1 zone, and the 9 is the 4 zone on the 9 zone. Okay? And then the 5, this 5 is dictated by age. At 18s, I probably would have put it like here or there. I want it quicker because normally it's trailing behind somebody, or we're doing it at pace. If you throw it too high, everybody's going to sit it. So you want to make sure it's at pace. And then there's also a D and a slide. And notice the slide on this thing is lower. I'd rather this middle be running after the slide and chasing versus a lob to the 9 zone because it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're running a 5-1. And the D is literally like a back 3. So it's in the gap between the 2 blockers. The main thing you want to be thinking of is these type of sets are trying to get inside a blocking scheme more than anything. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? But this visually kind of helps do everything. The back rows, red, white, blue in the back. The white can be called pipe, that's more than fine. And a big. I don't think anybody needs to be running a big, personally. Unless you've got a kid that's literally flying, I don't think we need to be running it. But if it's there, we'll talk about it. So offensive play sets, just to discuss, again, don't overdo this. So a tandem is always the first number's outside, second number's the middle. So the tandem is the quick in the middle with the outside coming in for the 5, right behind her. You're trying to catch that middle that's smaller on her way down. The 9 is the outlet. Now again, you run this, guess what's open? The 9, because everybody's focused on the tandem. So again, emphasize that to the kids. Pickle is a 5 with the outside, so she's coming in. So the B goes this way, middle trails, outside comes in, no block situation. But again, when you do that, the blockers all go this way, the 9 is open. You gotta get over to sight, right side, think about it. Oreo, we called this in college because the center was the cream filling, and the A and the C, right? Sorry. So you run the AC, it's a double quick, front and behind, and then you run the 3 ball because both blockers will jump with the wings. So this play specifically, when you run this, you're running it to set the outside. That play is specifically designed for that. If you're in trouble and you need to set your outside, run that. And these are on 3 balls too. And X is basically the outside's on a 1, right side comes around for the 5, middle's on an A. 1B9, that's to open up the 9, or a 1BD to open up the D. Does that make sense to everybody, by the way? When you got your outside, your middle running that B, it pulls everybody away from the right side. And in the back would be a 1B and the BIC, so you're running your middle and your outside. We ran this at 18. We'd run the 1 and the B, pull the hitters this way, and it opens up the middle for the BIC to come across the middle side. And then a stack. I put the stack in there because everybody in row 1 tries to run the stack. So when you're doing this, remember you can vary it on this as well. Like if your right side's really good, then you run 1A5, your right side's hitting the 5 because she's already stacked over there versus the outside. Planning practice. So early season, and this is something Aaron and I'll probably send out in more detail. I threw this out very quickly, but the point of this is early season, a lot of your stuff needs to be technical, especially at the younger age groups. A large percentage of practice. Don't get caught up in scrimmaging. 25 to 15, system stuff. Out of system, we can work on base defense, all that kind of stuff. 10, 50% watch drills. Stuff for their kids, any type of play drill. As we go into mid-season, it starts to go down, so we're still doing about 50% technical, but you can start doing a little more system play. This is when you start adding reps. Reps is reaffirming what you're doing, okay? And then your focus play is a higher percentage because you're getting ready for qualifiers. And then as you go on the, why does it say reffing? That didn't. End of season, that'd be less technical, more system, more rep and consistency training, and then the 25 about focus play. For 18s, for me, I have to kind of try to keep it entertaining, but we do the same 30 minutes every first practice on dialing in target swings, different sets, stuff like that every time, because we've got to be good at hitting zones. Game management. Main thing is stop the flow. If you've ever watched me coach, I'm really pretty good at this. I get yellow carded on purpose. I do a lot of things to get things written in the book. Anytime to stop a server, it's our run, right? So you've got timeouts. So timeouts, don't waste your timeouts early, but don't wait too long to call your timeout. Last night I was down 6 or 7 points. I had to call a timeout. I didn't really want to call it early, but at 6 points, you got to make a change. Or if you're up by 10 points and it scored 3, you're not going to start thinking ahead to stop it early, so don't bridge that gap early. But timeout management's important. Don't blow early, but in the same sense, you got to use it, right? Situational subs, this is when you come into your role taking with your teams. So with the sub, if Eric's not hitting very well, right, I'm going to let Eric know, like, I'm going to put you in a second. I need you just to tip the 2 and hold it alive. But you making that sub, a lot of times the ball skies out of bounds. And that's when you look at your kid, you high-five him for subbing out because the kid doesn't understand why you pulled him. You got to explain that. You're doing it for a reason. Your DSs, whatever. But situational subs are huge. Use them to your advantage. I think we got 15 subs this year for club.
18. Where's that
That's
school?
high school.
Oh, it's
It's
15.
50. It went from 12 to 15. Questions. This is me, but I consistently ask the down rep questions when they're starting to make a run. Hey, is the score right? Hey, how many subs do I have? How many timeouts do I have? Like, I'll just ask questions to stall just long enough for that kid to think about what she's serving. And then I know. I'll do anything I can. And honest to God, I will make an illegal substitution or a timeout in a game 3 to stall long enough for them to write in the book. It's part of the game. I do not cheat. You see me coach, if a ball is out of bounds and I see it, I will give the other team a point. Never cheat, but I will play with time, 100%. It's a yellow card. If I want it, I'm going to take it. We played Willowbrook in the finals of AAU's, several years ago. I was playing against Gabby and Tony, and we were in the game, and it was 13-13, and Frankie was on my bench. And I looked at Frankie, I'm like, Johnny, timeout? And he goes, no. So I looked at the ref, and I called a timeout, and the down ref whistled it, and then the up ref was like, no, and then he gave me the time delay. They had to go right in the book. Gabby's kid went back, started the ball out of bounds, 14-13. So use them, but just be careful when you use them. Lineup choices and why. Understand your rotations. Everybody says they understand rotations, but you don't, right? Manipulating lineups against weaker spots. I lost against Concordia last night because of the lineup. Because I started in the wrong rotation. I started at 6. I should have started at 1, but I wanted to save the subtle, but I'm in a game of 15. It was a dumb move. So we put her out there. My setter's front row, I only have 2 hitters. We weren't passing very well. My best hitter was my middle, but we couldn't set her. And my outside wasn't scoring. But if I would have rotated one time, I would have had a right side to outlet, and we only lost by 3 points. And they were up 7-1 before I made a thing. So you've got to pay attention to what your lineups and your studs are in those situations and be thinking ahead. Statements about the obvious. During games, try not to say not and don't. It's really hard. If you can do it in a tournament, it's like almost like a game. You catch yourself saying it so much you don't realize you say it. And don't, focus on things you can control. If you tell a kid they're not going to jump higher, tell them how to jump higher. Focus on what you control. The play has already happened. Ripping a kid right now is understandable, but you're also losing faith of where the next point's going to be scored. So understanding what you control, you can't get this, it already happened. And then out-coach, not motivate. You cannot beat a team that's motivated. You can't. When they get motivated, they can be way less than you, and they're still going to beat you. We got beat in a tournament by a team that literally had the top team of Tornadoes, and they were good. And we got beat by a team from San Antonio that literally had no block. Think about that. I had all big kid banging balls. These kids literally would dig balls off their chest and beat us. They just would not die. It's the most annoying thing ever. You get a team to play out there. What parents want to see, are they improving? If your kids are improving and you're losing games, we will back you 110%. I can give 2 craps about how many games you win if your kids are getting better and they're getting smarter. And if they leave and go play for another club, that's fine. They're better kids because of it. We don't need it. Okay, but they have to be improving. And if they're not improving, use your resources. Communicate and educate. If your parents understand something, they will not come at you. If your kids are right side and your parents are pissed because they don't serve, you have to take the time to explain to them that you're in a 6-2 and the setter's going in for them. If they understand that, they don't have a problem. But they're going to boil over it until they understand it. If you're situational subbing in a deal and you don't explain what that is in your parent meeting, they're going to be pissed. So communicating and understanding what you're doing and why is huge. She can attest. I talk to my parents every tournament at the end of my tournament, whether I want to or not. And believe me, there's times where I jump on talking to anybody. But I do at least go out there and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, what have you. And it's a pretty open door of communication. You can't be afraid to talk to parents. You can't be afraid of conflict. You can be afraid of crazy, that's going to happen, right? But if you can have a conversation, explain it. As long as you can explain it, normally they'll drop back. Demeanor. If you look pissed off all the time, then those kids are going to think you're pissed off all the time. So you've got to change your face. Competitiveness, be competitive, we want to win. Do not worry about it if you teach the kids as you go along, but you're trying to win games. Manage your lineup, and when you're up by 15 points, don't put 5 subs in. Because volleyball's momentum, and you will lose those games. You may be up by 10, but that will switch very quickly, and if you have a whole bunch of kids in it, just highlights the fact they're not good, and it's a whole other problem. Manipulate your lineups, get them in.
Sprinkle.
Performance under pressure and respond to the pressure. What coaches want to see in the bench, what we want to see is high energy, an active bench. Make sure your kids are involved. If they're trying to play in college, they're going to watch them on the bench just as much as they watch them on the court. Make sure they have roles, make sure they have chairs, make sure everybody has a role. Assistants, make sure that you're going somewhere where they're not. If I'm talking the middles, Alicia can talk to the rows. Chanel can go to the outsides. Where my focus is work around me. And if I'm on your bench, when I sit down, I'm going to ask you, what do you want me to work on? Can you watch this? Got it. I don't care if we have 9 coaches. If they find us, they find us. We are fine. Unless they make us get off that bench, go sit the benches. In New Orleans, we will overcrowd the benches. We will have the kids standing and the bench full of coaches. And it's a blast. Because we're all talking, kind of joking, but we're all like coaching and it's fun. And the kids freaking love it. We just can't do it as much anymore for the qualifiers. If you go to Chicago with somebody, have a drink with them the first night, talk about what they want, and go out and coach again. Stay in the gym. Good cop, bad cop's important. Common terms and messages we already talked about. Use our terminology. Reffing, please do not pay attention to reffing. I will get on your butt about this. If I walk over your court and you're lackadaisically reffing with our shirt on, I'm going to come at you. Because there's no reason for it. Because I know for a fact you would be livid if they were doing it to you. Now, if you're tired, I will go ref for you. One of the other coaches that are off, I'll go ref for you. If you're tired, don't do it. But if you're gonna ref, do it right, because it's a bad look. We don't want that stigma, and your kids too. If they're not paying attention and they're line judging, get on it. Because they're gonna play just like they ref. Your team reflects you, and then make sure, I would say make a schedule of your kids in advance so that they don't bitch at each other. Because what's gonna happen is one kid's gonna end up scoring every game and they're gonna get pissed. Suggested reads with your teams. And you can take a picture of this. Chop Wood, Carry Water, I'm doing my high school team right now. They really like it. It's a great book. It's really simple. The chapters are like 3 to 4 minutes long, and they're real poignant on stuff that's going to happen through the season. It's a great way to end or start practice. You have a message, it's delivered, you have a 2-second conversation, it's 5 minutes in, you're gone. But it's a great way to do it. It's also nice because you can get them early to practice and getting dressed while we're listening to the chapter. But it's got some great messages. Make Your Bed's about a Navy SEAL and talks about his route. Have you read that one? It's a great book. It's only like 12 chapters. So it's a nice one if you just want to do it early in the season. But the messages in there, you'll use terminology from it all the time. It's really good. And then Energy Buzz, if you've got a team that's struggling mentally, it's really good. It's a little bit harder to do in a setting. You might have to break it up, like little portions of it. The story's good, but the 10 things in it is really good, like Energy Vampires and stuff like that is really good. So all 3 of those are really good coaching books. If anything, you can listen. I don't read. I listen to it because I hate reading. No. Questions? For the record, I made it under my time. I did. Not last time. Are there any questions about anything, even if it's quick and easy? We need to discuss high fives. So she was asking, are we going to talk individually about what I want her to run? Everyone in this room has their own journey. I'm here for you in that journey. If you're struggling, act quickly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Know what you don't know. I am old, and I've coached for longer than most people in this room have been alive. And I'm still asking people questions. I called Ben Wallace 3 days ago to ask about something with stats. I'm constantly trying to figure new things out and learn things. I don't want to be that coach that's stagnant. Ask questions if you don't know. But if you have a route, I will talk to you about it, but you're going to know your kids better than me. I'm not going to be with your team as much as you are, if much at all. So I will be there when you call me to. So you know your kids. If I sit your bench, I'm not going to judge you if you're playing a 3-foot outside that you think is going to score. That is your decision. There's things that Alicia does with the freshman team that I agree or not agree with, but I know she's doing it for a reason and stay out of it. I let her do it. We discuss things, but that's her lineup. It's y'all's lineups. I'll back you. Just make sure if you have questions when you look at the stats and stuff, make sure we're not missing something. Yes. You'll have practices on your own. You're going to have 2 hours of court time. And she may be talking about that today. Now, coming up, In our first round of practices, open courts is not going to be open yet until December 1st. So the Sunday practices are going to be tweaked. We'll have 2 Sunday practices before Thanksgiving. And we'll have 1 or 2 if you have a tournament going up of a practice of like 30 minutes mixed, an hour and 30 minutes. We're working on that schedule. And one Sunday is most likely to be a positional type practice. The other will be more of a scrimmage and positional practice. We're working on that right now. Because Aaron has a different idea than I do, so we're trying to work that out. Does that answer your question? Aaron?
Anybody have more questions about training stuff?
We will dig into this more. The main thing to understand is you really got to have your teeth in this because you've got to be able to teach it. And understanding it's one thing, teaching is another. So you got to make sure we're going to go through this a couple times, especially system stuff and on-off overtime.